Civ fans. Today we woke up to the news that there have been layoffs at Firaxis Games, the developer of Civilization 7. Now, as a content creator and us as players and us as a overall community, it has been a difficult road with Civilization 7 so far, and hearing that there have been layoffs at the developer only makes us feel more demoralized about Civ 7's future. Now, before I talk about Civ 7's future and what this might mean or indicate, I want to talk about the human element of this for just a moment because layoffs are terrible in any industry. It's always really hard to read about people losing their jobs, and the video game industry is notoriously ruthless, so this kind of headline happens all the time. From what I can tell, these layoffs touched every department at Firaxis. It touched new employees. There are some employees that were laid off that have been there for 14 years. And it's just hard to imagine, just picture you in your job. You've spent, the last 5, 6, 7, however much time kind of creatively just putting your heart and soul into these projects. And then they release, and we'll talk about the reception it's got. But the thing you've created releases, and then all of a sudden you find yourself out of a job. And it's not just that, whether it's Firaxis Games or the video game industry or anyone in general, being laid off from your job is really scary. A job is security, it's a salary, it's health insurance, it's, security for your family. Firaxis Games is based in Maryland. Do these folks get to stay in Maryland? Do they have to move somewhere else? Can they find another video game developing job in Maryland? What's the state of the video game industry? Are they going to be able to find something in another video game development team? It seems that there are layoffs kind of across the board, across the whole industry. So it's just really, really difficult to kind of read about layoffs at Firaxis Games, especially because, I don't interact with devs at any other game company. Not that I interact with the ones at Firaxis overly frequently, but I have interacted with the devs at Firaxis multiple occasions. Every Civ Give, a couple of devs come around. In the kind of pre-release process for Civilization 7, there were devs that hopped on some multiplayer games with us. There were devs that did Q&As with us. And so I've had the chance to chat with, and I when I was in New York for the Civ 7 VR event, I got the chance to meet some developers there as well. And they've always just been so nice and kind and supportive and just seemed like a bunch of amazing people. And so, it really, really sucked this morning to read about the layoffs. For the future of Civilization 7, though, again, it's hard not to feel demoralized, regardless of whether these layoffs are part of just, an overall video game strategic decision, whatever, however you want to, mega capitalize layoffs. Whether it's part of like a downsizing or a coherence improvement or a efficiency maintain, whatever. You know what corporate people always say. It still feels demoralizing. If you had heard the news that Firaxis was hiring 10 new staff to work on the next Civ DLC or whatever, you'd feel better about it. So just hearing the opposite news kind of makes you feel worse about the outlook of the game. Now, one of the things that's interesting is this is actually quite common in the video game industry, and it's a really abhorrent thing, actually. I think a lot of developers and publishers, just in the race to late game capitalism that happens in every industry, they always treat video game development like it's a very long game seasonal opportunity, like you are working at an ice cream stand in the summer in Miami or something, where you hire. You have a big team of dedicated people to make your game, in this case, Civilization 7, but whatever game it is. And then that game releases, and you make the money that you're going to make off the game. And then by the time anyone gets to like be a part of the celebration and get to like stew in their hard work and kind of see the end of the tunnel and kind of get the benefit of what their hard work has made, before they move on to the next project, they just find themselves out of a job. And partly this is almost certainly because it takes a lot more people to make a game from the ground up than it does to maintain it and patch it and do the DLCs and just keep the same trajectory. And then by the time you have to make the next game, you can hire a different set of people. Those people can come in and possibly be on lower wages, have less tenure, you know what I mean? Those types of things. And it is just a really abhorrent practice in the gaming industry that's just really, really frustrating, where a game releases, everyone is, crunch, heart and soul, everyone's put everything into the product. And then, before you can even really just enjoy its success, or in this case, Civ 7 is not successful. So it's like you're still fucking working on it. To just be laid off is, it's just a really shitty practice. And yeah, it sucks. It's unfortunate for many reasons, but one of the reasons this practice, really just feels incredibly frustrating and demoralizing is that without even looking, I'm not even going to look. I'm not even going to look it up. I'll probably look it up to confirm it just so it's just not in the video. But 2K is going to make a fuckload of money this year. Take Two is going to make a ton of money. All of these companies are going to be profitable. They can afford to have these development teams. They don't have to lay anyone off. And then when they do lay people off, whoever the executives are going to get bonuses for having laid the people off because they reduced the payroll by X amount or whatever. So all the money that was going to middle class video game developers just gets piled up into a bonus for someone who's already extraordinarily rich anyway. And it's just incredibly infuriating. Like most things, when you kind of see it from afar, it really sucks. But when it affects people that you not know, like not capital K know, but when it affects people you more or less know and that make your favorite game, it's just it feels even worse. With Civ 7 as well, this is a game I like more than most people. I'm still on that bandwagon. I stand by my review. I stand by that Civ 7's a good game. I enjoy the new things about it, whether it's the age transitions or the combat or the civ switching, or I really like this game, so I'm not pretending in that sense. I know I like it more than most people, but I think we can all agree that there were huge flaws with Civ 7 when it launched, and there's still huge flaws with it now. And it was a game that was clearly released before it was ready. It was in the oven but hadn't quite cooked yet. And when you ask yourself, well, who would have been responsible for that, right? Who is it that's responsible for releasing games that aren't finished? And it's not going to be the people developing it. They're going to want to release the best version of the product they're making. They're going to want to release a complete experience. It's going to be more often than not the publisher who sets deadlines that are unachievable, who pushes people to release things that aren't ready. Publishers who potentially interfere with ways or in ways with the development in order to try and make more money. One of the criticisms I levied at the Founders Edition, kind of pre Civ 7, wasn't the Founders Edition itself kind of sucked and I really didn't like it. Still don't like it, whatever. One of the things that I said at the time is, by kind of knowing the Founders Edition is going to have X, Y, and Z, and there's going to be this DLC, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, before the game is even done, you are already planning past the base game into the future to sell people more stuff. Like, you're already planning to sell me more things before I've even paid and purchased and received the main thing that I paid for. And sometimes it works out for you, but more often than not, you end up with this feeling with Civ 7, which is like, in the development, at some point, 2K swung by and was like, hey, we need to have this DLC and this DLC and this DLC, and we need to have this plan, and we got to be this future focus on this thing we can sell people, and never stop to be like, hold on a minute, should we, release a thing that isn't ready? And it's also frustrating because it doesn't even matter why, it kind of always circles back to the publisher, right? Whether it's a scheduling thing, maybe Civ was meant to release in October, but then they had Borderlands, and they want Borderlands to release in, I guess it's September now, but it was early October or late September, right? And so they're like, well, we can't release two games. We can't release two games, that close together, and we need the money, so we're going to push one of them back to February. That would explain a lot. It could have been that Grand Theft Auto was going to come out. Now, 2K doesn't publish that, but their parent company, Take Two, does, own Rockstar and kind of publish that. And so that's a possible reason for it. But either way, whoever is responsible for Civ 7 releasing in a state that it released in and now needing all this work are the publishers. So for the publishers to turn around and go, hey, this game released, it's not as successful, it's not as good, people don't like it as much, it's not bringing in as much revenue, so we're going to cut people from the team who made it, when the publisher is almost certainly the one responsible for pushing the game out in a state where it wasn't quite ready, is just, it just sucks. And it's, again, this, like most things, like the Founders Edition, I'm not just shitting on 2K because shitting on 2K is fun. It really is an industry-wide problem that just really, really feels bad. And for Civ 7's future, again, you have to wonder what this means for the game. Could this just be there was always going to be planned layoffs? we'll release the game, we'll check in 6 months. There's going to be layoffs because they always do layoffs after a game releases. So, whether the game had a great reception or not, this was always going to happen. Is it indicative of the game not doing well? So, they had to fast track the layoffs or lay off more folks than they were planning to, whatever it is. You have to wonder what they're going to do with Civ 7 now because they've patched it 4 times, like 4 big patches. It's a measurably better experience, to be fair, and I enjoyed it at the beginning, so I had a good time, and now I'm having a great time. I think the patches have been improvements on the game, but they're kind of at a standstill now because I don't think the core mechanics of the game are connecting with the people playing it. And they're connecting with me, and that's fine. But I don't think your average Civ player is connecting with the age transitions. I don't think they're connecting with the Civ switching. I don't think they're connecting with these aspects of the game. And so far, a lot of the patches have been neutering the big swings they took. They've been making the age transitions less abrupt and giving you more options about how you want the ages to transition. They're allowing you to unlock all the civs instead of having to go through the in-game unlocks. All of these are worthy additions to give people more customization, but it kind of feels like they're just doing it because people aren't connecting. Like, they're not making the thing itself better. They're not, going and being, we believe in these mechanics, so we'll make them better. They're just like, fuck, people don't like these, so let's just, as much as we can, revert it back to the old way of doing things. And the first DLC is going to be a big test for them because most Civ games have kind of 2 big DLCs that introduce a ton of new mechanics. Civ 6, we had Rise and Fall and Gathering Storm, and Civ 6 didn't really pop off till Gathering Storm. It got better with Rise and Fall, didn't really pop off till Gathering Storm, but I don't think the reception was quite as negative as it was for this one. And so you're going to have one big expansion, which might add another age. And if you add another age, it's just another age transition people aren't going to like. Maybe they'll introduce like a big, sweeping diplomacy system. That's an obvious one for me. But it's not clear to me where Civ 7 goes, right? This is a game that I really enjoy, that most people don't really enjoy, where the problems with it don't have obvious solutions. They're kind of core and fundamental to the game experience themselves. There's a lot more work they can do within the UI and the DLCs to make that experience better, which is how Civ games have done things in the past. So we'll kind of see how that goes, right? But there's no real obvious way they're gonna turn the ship around to connect Civ 7 to the general gaming population, and it's just gonna get harder, right? You're gonna have more and more games release. You're gonna have more and more games like Civ. Like, I know Civ, there hasn't been a Civ killer yet, but now's a great time for your humankinds and your old worlds and your endless legends. I played an endless legends beta a couple months ago and had a great time with it, right? You're going to start having more and more of these games taking more and more chunks out of Civ if the reception keeps going this way. And you have to wonder, at what point is someone going to actually connect with the audience? Is someone going to actually be able to make that happen? And so, yeah, these layoffs really suck in that sense because you never want people losing their job, and that's really unfortunate. And they may or may not be an indicator of Civ 7, but just for me, it's hard to see. It's hard to see, just demoralizing, and hard to see the obvious path forward for Civ. So we'll see what happens. This news really sucked. It's just kind of you just really want your favorite game and your favorite game developers, and to be successful, and to just watch everyone be on month 6 of not being that successful, and then people getting laid off when it's almost certainly none of those people who caused any of the problems in the first place. It's just really unfortunate. But yeah, that's the update on on Firaxis Games this morning. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know how you're doing. I've got some Civ 7 coming up tomorrow for you, so that's wonderful. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.